Hi guys, welcome back to Relentless. For the next few segments, we are going to talk about food and nutrition, which is a heated topic in today's world.
A lot of information out there.
But before we get into our topics, I wanted to bring Emily here with me to introduce herself and to kind of try to wade through the information and the classifications that some people use in the industry. So with the MLM market out there, you have a lot of people that are selling supplements and selling meal replacements, and they're also taking on the extremely important job of recommending food and telling people what they should eat. And they're very well meaning, their heart's in the right place, but they're just simply not qualified.
Yeah, that's right. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the distinction between what a nutritionist is and what a registered dietitian is. Mm-hmm. So a nutritionist, anybody can call themselves a nutritionist. There is no specific licensure for that practice. A registered dietitian is licensed throughout the country. It's a legitimate, well-known organization that covers our licensure, and I am a registered dietitian, and I have a master's degree in nutritional sciences, so I'm kind of like nerd alert. I'm really into research.
Yes.
So a lot of my information is based upon current peer-reviewed literature out there, which is important.
Which is what I strive to do, is bring the most highly qualified professional in every field, and especially if there is a licensure for that field. In my opinion, that's the best way to go, because you're going to get the best information, most current information. You guys are held accountable for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And you're constantly training yourself. You're not just selling a product or telling someone what they saw on the internet that day. So that's what's very important to me.
Or, my aunt is stopped eating gluten, I should too.
Exactly. And that's what is another important thing to point out, is there are a lot of great things out there. Mm-hmm. And if you could look at the world as a population study, that would be fine. Mm-hmm. But the problem is we are individuals, which is where you come in.
Right. Individual needs, and people need personalization, as particularly when it comes to their diet and food.
And just one clue that you can have that will help you decipher who you're talking to. One good way to judge is if you have a diagnosis and you're talking with someone and you ask them, I have XYZ diagnosis, can you tell me what to eat, or can you help formulate a meal plan for me? They have to say, I can't tell you that. I'm not qualified, or I'm not able, or something as an answer that they're going to give you that you'll know, wait a minute, why can't you tell me?
Yeah, that's definitely a red flag. So when it comes to specified meal plans in terms of diagnoses, you want to find somebody. It has to be a registered dietitian.
Yes.
I mean, it's for your own health.
Okay.
It's important.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to dive into some hot topics that have to do with nutrition. Don't get scared. I know everybody has a different relationship with food. Mm-hmm. Some people are foodies and they love it. Some people don't have a good relationship with food. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to hope to do, is shift your relationship with food to a healthy one and let it be part of your healing process and overall well-being. So stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining us with another episode of Relentless. Today, talking with Emily about food and the diet craze.
Woo,
so it's,
lots to cover.
It depends on what day you turn on the news or open up your computer as to what diet we should be following. And there's no wonder why people are frustrated and why they're actually trying to do something good for themselves, and that thing becomes another stressor.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of, for you, I know, looking at it from your perspective, you probably have to get very frustrated because you know how people are being led in the wrong direction. And you're like, no, it is not that difficult.
Right. And I do see the diet industry, it's the amount of money people contribute to the diet industry. It's amazing to me when you have better odds of success in Vegas than you do with pretty much any diet out there.
Right.
So yes, it's frustrating, but it actually gives me hope, because when I work with people, they're saying, wait a second, I don't have to diet. I don't have to restrict my food intake. No, we can do things, we can simplify things to make life a little bit easier. Yeah. So should we talk about the popular diet?
Talk to us about what's the fad right now. What's going on?
Okay, well, I'm actually going to go back in history a little bit, and then I'm going to bring us right back up to speed. So, when you look at like old photographs or videotape from the 80s or 90s, and you see like the huge hair and like the crazy outfits, you think, wow.
Yes.
Guilty. Well, I knew the same thing with diets. Okay, so I say, oh my gosh, they really need a makeover.
Right.
So I'm going to start with sort of the low-fat diet craze, which is pretty characteristic of what we were being told like in the 80s and 90s. And some people still feel like a low-fat diet is the way to go. So what happened back then is the food industry hopped on this low-fat diet train, and what they did was they took out the fat and they added in sugar and salt and thickeners and other additives.
Sounds horrible.
Right? Welcome to the food industry.
I know, right?
So what happened after all of these additives and kind of gross stuff was added in the food, people they would start to eat more carbohydrates. So we have our macronutrients, which is your carbohydrate, your fat, and your protein. So when you eliminate one of those, something's got to give, right?
The equation is messed up.
Right, and one of those is going to go up. So for folks that were following the low-fat diet, what they noticed is people started eating carbohydrates, and then they started to do some research to look into it, and carbohydrates became the enemy, right?
Oh, yes.
Because when you eat an excess of carbohydrates, you're going to gain weight, and all sorts of physiological issues can occur, and they're not necessarily healthy for you. We're going to address carbohydrates because I happen to be a fan of carbohydrates, and I typically don't encourage people to completely take them out. Right. So what happened is people started eating lower fat, then they ate more carbohydrates, and then the low carbohydrate craze was born, right? So then you had your Atkins, the ketogenic diet, which to me looks a little bit like a repackaged Atkins diet. And there's some issues whenever you take out an entire food group. Right. There's going to be some issues. There's going to be some consequences that you didn't intend. Right. But there they are. Yeah. Anyway.
So we have a conglomeration of diets to choose from. Yeah. So if that's not the best thing for us to do, what is the answer?
I thought you'd never ask. That's amazing. Okay, so I just want to address a little bit about why diets don't work, and then I'm going to talk about how we can change our relationship with food. Perfect. So what happens in your typical diets is you're going to see weight loss, which is great for some people, and then over time you're going to see weight gain plus 5 to 10 pounds, and then you're going to go on another diet and you're going to see weight loss, and that's where this yo-yo diet pattern comes into play. The yo-yo diet pattern can cause stress on our heart, and interestingly as well can cause some psychological issues. So it changes our relationship with food. Right. And when we have a poor relationship with food, it's sort of a reflection of kind of what's going on internally, and that's not a good thing. So how do we improve our relationship with food?
Please tell us.
Okay, here we go.
The masses want to know.
Right. So one of the ways that we can start to do that is by practice mindfulness when eating. And that sounds kind of like crunchy, go hug a tree, but it's actually really simple. Yeah. So when we practice mindfulness when we're eating, our brain and our bodies know that we've eaten, and we can take pleasure in that art. When we're sort of on another planet, when we're in front of our phones, when we're in front of the TV, when we're in our cars, the brain doesn't Okay, we're all guilty. We're all guilty. The brain doesn't necessarily recognize that we've eaten. Right. So we still don't feel satisfied. So putting down the screen, putting away the screens, focusing on what you're eating can be improve your relationship with food. And you can actually get more pleasure out of eating, which is part of the point. Right. Not just nourishment. Yes. So one thing I'd like to address is practicing the art of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that might sound like, how does that have to do with nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we don't want to see people do is punish themselves for what they ate yesterday.
Right.
It doesn't serve any
Right.
purpose. So whatever you did, forgive yourself. We forgive people. We know people aren't perfect, but when it comes to us internally, we tend to beat ourselves up a little bit, and it's not beneficial.
Right.
Okay, so another point I'd like to make is say, well, how does this have anything to do with food? Comparison is the thief of joy. So what does that mean? So when we're walking down the street and we see someone and they have a body type that we really wish that we had, right? We say, oh, if only I looked like that.
Right.
And looking at the cover of magazines and how unrealistic, that aspiration is. And oftentimes I like to ask my clients, okay, so let's say you completed your goal and you lost the 10 pounds or you lost the 20 pounds. How would your life look different? Like, what would change? You might have some of the same stressors, but what would change? I love to explore those issues with my clients. So please stop comparing yourself to other people.
Right.
Especially when it comes to body type.
Yes.
Because we're all different shapes and sizes, and we can be healthy at any size.
Yes.
And I understand the want and the desire to be thinner, and I can help people with that. But we've got to address some of the psychology behind it.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. And that's what's missing in yo-yo dieting. They're not addressing the internal.
Absolutely.
And that's what the point of all of this is you can't separate. Again, you can't separate
the mind-body connection.
You can't do it. And that's what the goal of this is to get people to understand it's all of it. It has to be all of it to be completely healthy. And that's what we're working for, is to getting the individual to their highest point of health.
Yeah. And that you can achieve happiness and healthiness at any size.
Yes. So give us one takeaway that the people watching can use today to affect their right now, that they can take away and make a change or a shift in thinking that will help improve their relationship with food.
So glad you asked. So one thing that you can do is try to remove problematic foods from your home. So sometimes what I like to do with clients is do a pantry makeover, and that might sound like I come in with hammer and nails. I wish I had that skill set, but it's more about taking out the problematic foods. So foods that are causing distress, foods that are inhibiting you from having a healthy relationship with food. What's my trigger? Cookies, right? So if they're not in the home, it's kind of like a relationship where you want to like break up with the person that's like really toxic.
Right.
It's the same thing with food. Like try to avoid it. Try not to have it in your home. And be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself. Be gentle and forgive yourself. Okay, so nobody's perfect. That's what my 5-year-old always tells me. And find alternatives to emotional eating. So when we feel bored, sad, even happy at times, right? We grab, usually it's a high carbohydrate, high fat kinds of foods, which are comfort foods. That makes perfect sense. But finding alternatives to that is really helpful. So what else besides food brings you joy and happiness?
And I would assume this is exactly what you do in a session with a client, is you explore those options, but specific to that person.
Individualized.
And specific to their day, specific to their life, what craziness they have going on, and how they can make this all function, because that chaos doesn't stop.
Never.
So you're trying to get them a roadmap on how to make all of these concepts work, given their lifestyle and how they have to move about their day.
Absolutely. And when it comes to quality of life, like your junk food, your problem foods are part of that. So knowing how to live a healthy lifestyle, including all the things that you like.
And I'm just going to make a side note. On her website, it actually shows a picture of eating ice cream. So I'm just saying.
Achilles heel.
We can have ice cream, right?
You can have ice cream. You can celebrate ice cream.
I'm in. You got me. I'm sold. So guys, I hope this information was helpful to you and gives you just a glimmer of hope and possibilities of what can be done when you're working with the right person and you invest in yourself and make better decisions. So we'll see you again soon and continue on your journey of being relentless with your relationship with food. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.